welcome back to Book Reviews by Alice Hanoff. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, make sure you do so that you don't miss out on any of my Wednesday and Friday book reviews, and you don't miss out on my Monday mythology, where I talk about the fantasy aspects in the world of Torian, which is the world in my book series, The Head, the Heart, and the Air, that's coming out in June. Or came out in June, depending when you watch this video. So welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about Six of Crows. And yes, as you can tell by my star rating, I am not part of the mass majority that loves Six of Crows. So if you love Six of Crows and you think it's the greatest book ever, please leave now, because I don't need people yelling at me in my comments. Yeah. All right, so let's get down to it. To summarize Six of Crows, I always like to say it is Ocean's 11 meets Escape from Alcatraz with teenagers. Yeah, that's the vibe I get from this book, which is unfortunate because I was meh on Ocean's 11 and I was not a fan of heist or like escapism type movies like that. So this book was in trouble from the get-go. The fact that the first chapter started as the first chapter should have been a prologue, to be honest. When a book starts with the first chapter that has nothing to do with the main characters and is not the main character, that to me is a problem for writing. It is the only book I have ever read where the first chapter did not deal with the main character or one of the main characters. And that drove me nuts. When I started reading it, I tried to learn every one of those names that is mentioned in that first chapter for nothing. And I'll be honest, I was pissed when none of them came back. So if you're gonna write a book like that, that should have been a prologue, because then no one expects to have to remember everything from the prologue. The other thing that irked me in this is the 6 point of views. I like a multiple point of view book. I think they're fun, but apparently my limit is 3 or 4. Because once we started hitting 5 and 6, I started confusing them. Meaning when I went from Inej and Nina were probably the easiest to differentiate, and I could tell they were girls a little bit, but Kaz is kind of the only one I could tell from the male point of views. The rest of them, they were just one blob of other guys. And that is a problem. When you're writing as so many point of views, they have to be different enough that when you pick up a book anywhere in a chapter that you immediately know whose point of view you're reading from. And I am a person who is weird when I read. I can put a book down in the middle of a sentence and it doesn't bother me. Probably because I read 8 books at once. They're all built in my head, along with my novella, book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4 that I'm working on. Like, all my books are in my head. It's almost like I have a filing cabinet in there, and each book has its own file, and I have no problems remembering exactly where I was. So for me, when you have a book where I cannot tell whose point of view I'm in when I pick it up, I actually have to read to the end of a chapter. Or I have to go to the beginning of the chapter every time I pick the book up and be like, who the hell is talking? And I don't like that. As somebody who can just pause a book and move on with my life, when it takes work to go back into that book, I have problems with it. And it wasn't just me, I will say that. It might be my generation, it might be a thing about my house, but I made my husband read Six of Crows as well. When I bought a bunch of these books to start researching what's new with fantasy, to write my YA fantasy series, I bought Six of Crows, I bought Alcatraz, I bought like a handful of books just randomly on Amazon that were popular and started reading them. And he understood why Alcatraz was written the way that it was, but this one flabbergasted him, and it flabbergasted me as well. Those 6 point of views, we both just looked at each other like, what? And he had a hard time as well with it. And my husband has a master's of computer science. He can keep random crap in his brain, no problem. So the fact that this was annoying to him as well told me it wasn't just me. That made me feel a little bit better, because most people seem to love this. And I suspect part of it is the world building is fantastic, and it is, if you like heists or you want something different with teenagers, especially if you're actually a young adult and you're reading this thinking, oh my God, these teenagers are living such adventurous lives and things like that, it's fantastic. Whereas for me, as an older person who reads YA, like end of my 30s kind of older person, I was just like, really? I'm supposed to believe that the 17-year-old did this? So I also think that might have been it. And part of it probably is just that I really liked 3 of the characters. I didn't like some of the characters. I hated Matthias. I'll be entirely honest with you. I hate him so much. I want him to die. Like, I hate that character. He annoys the crap out of me. He needs to go away. So that probably doesn't help. And that's the hard part too. When you have 6 characters that you have the point of view from, you're more likely to have somebody you hate as well. You know, you're gonna have someone you love, but you're also gonna end up with somebody you probably don't like. And because of that, it's a lot harder then to get them all quite right. I had the same thing in Throne of Glass. I know some people love Manon. I hate her. She bugged the crap out of me. Every chapter I had to read with her, I roll my eyes and I go, ugh, and I speed read through her. I will read Chol and Dorian, no problem, but as soon as you make me read Manon, no. She's boring and I hate her. So everybody has different people like that when they read a book with this many point of views. So I think that's just my problem, is that most of them for me were uninteresting, unexciting, and therefore it made it really hard to slog through. Even Nina wasn't that great. Like, having read what different Krishnas were capable of in Shadow and Bone, her powers and everything just were like, very uninteresting to me. She did not feel special in any way after having read about the Krishnas in the other ones. So that made her kind of boring to begin with as well. So please don't hate me. You know, we're all allowed to like different books. If you loved it, fantastic. I am so glad that you loved it. And I will talk about lots of books that I love and a couple books that I'm not quite as big a fan of. And that's okay. We're all allowed to like different books and to hate different books. And that's what makes reading fabulous. So if you're not already following me, make sure you do so that you can get more of these fabulous book reviews. And please don't yell at me in the comments. Have a good day.